Welcome to you, David. Great to have you on board.
Well, it's great to be here. How are you, gents?
We're going particularly well, and all the better for having you on. When do you actually arrive in Melbourne?
I get down to Melbourne in a few days' time on Monday. Monday evening, I get down to Melbourne. I can't wait. It's been a long, long time, or it
Yep.
feels like an eternity since we were at the. Let's not call it the Australian Grand Prix, the festival of motorsport that is the Australian Grand Prix. And it's a proper festival as well. I love the way you guys embrace, the V8s and the Formula One together and just have a party. Should we have a party in Melbourne? Can we have a party in
No,
Melbourne?
you can absolutely do it. We are renowned, as you well know, as the world's greatest lockdown city, but you wouldn't believe it. We've actually opened up to some large degree.
Brilliant. Because look, I know how competitive you are in Melbourne. I know it's a sporting city, but you didn't have to make lockdown an international sport now, did you?
No, we were gold medalists there. I mean, it is lucky you're coming here. I mean, the worst thing you'd want to be doing right now is going to Perth because they've actually taken over. I mean, they're the only place in the country where you could possibly get COVID if you walk around the streets.
Well, yeah. Well, we are going. I am going to Perth as
I
well.
know.
Oh no, Sherry, what have you done?
We had the West Australian AFL team have to put in their reserve side. They lost so many players. Just be very careful, David. We'd hate to have you as an absentee.
No, I'll be there. Don't you worry. Look, there's a serious point to this though as well. That Australia and people in Australia have suffered a lot through the last couple of years with lockdowns.
Yep.
And I think it's great that your Grand Prix is now coming back where, you can celebrate your love of Formula One as a great Australian nation and just get a bit of enjoyment because there's been a paucity of proper escapism in a sporting context and enjoyment over the last couple of years. We felt it very keenly in Formula One, and I'm sure you guys down under have felt it even more so. So there's many, many reasons why I'm glad we're coming back to Albert Park, but the overriding one is we're coming back, and let's celebrate that.
And we will. And so much to ask you about the upcoming Melbourne Grand Prix and Daniel Ricciardo. We'll get to that. But David, just to start things off, what have you made of the start of the season? And is it real that Mercedes look well off the pace?
Yeah, but if Mercedes was sandbagging, they'd have stopped by the time the lights went out in Bahrain. They wouldn't have carried it on for another couple of races there. Just because they're 8-time consecutive constructors champions, they don't want to give everyone a head start. No, they've got real problems, and they've had real problems all along. And I've been trying to tell people that they've got real problems, but everyone thinks they're sandbagging. The porpoising issue is not going away, and I rather suspect that they're having a lot of trouble trying to correlate what they're learning and what they're seeing in the sim and in the wind tunnel with what's actually happening on track, which is the worst situation to be in. It's one thing when things go wrong and you can identify why things go wrong. When you're still scratching your heads as to why things are going wrong, then you know that you've got a serious issue and you know it's going to take that much longer to try and fix. What have I made of the start of the season? I think it's been a cracking start. I really do. I think everything we hoped for with these new regulations has come to fruition. Cars appear to be able to follow other cars way more closely. We see more opportunities as a result of that for overtaking. We might not get the overtakes, but at least we've got the opportunities. DRS is still needed and it is still quite powerful, and maybe at times it is a bit too powerful. So that might need a bit of fine tuning as we go forward. But by and large, I'm loving it. The cars aren't as fast as they were last year, but as a result of the regulation changes, they are a lot closer to each other, even with the age-old problem that when we change the regulations, some teams get it right, some teams get it wrong, and you're going to get a split down the field. These regs, to me, just feel like something that's going to be around for a long time to come. And eventually, with the sliding scale of what you can and can't do and how much time you can spend in the wind tunnel to improve your car, depending on how successful you are, it's given us a platform for the future for a lot more closer racing to come. And I'll vote for that any day.
David, can you just go back and explain a little bit more if you can, because we've got a lot of upset Mercedes drivers out there about this porpoising effect. which I'm not sure it's impacting on the B and C class Mercedes that our listeners are driving. But my understanding is everybody got a chance to redesign their cars, and they're porpoising. What does that mean?
Okay, so don't worry if you're driving a B or C class Mercedes, you won't suffer porpoising.
Okay.
It happens more to cars that rely on ground effect. So there's a Formula One car needs downforce. Downforce is what sucks it to the floor and it enables it to take corners at a rapid rate of knots.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways you can do that is by accelerating the air through kind of tunnels, like I'm sure you guys are very keen personal groomers, and I'm sure you get your clippers out from time to time, and trim off some of that body hair of yours, and you put your little attachment onto your clippers, and it kind of funnels the hair. So it's a bit like that under a Formula One car, but rather than your hair going through it, it's air instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that accelerates and is accelerated by the diffuser at the end as the air rushes out. Lighter air underneath the car, heavier air on top of the car. So the air goes very fast underneath the car and slower because of the drag effect and the fact there's a shape moving through the air on top of the car, and that creates downforce.
Yep.
And the idea is to attach the car as much as possible and to seal off the sides of the car as close to the ground as you possibly can, which accelerates the air even more and gives you better downforce. I think I'm right in saying that. I'm not an aerodynamicist. I apologize if I've got it wrong, but I don't think I have. But what happens with porpoising is that air basically the setup and the ride of the car becomes unstable, and eventually that air pushes the car up because it's got nowhere to go, and isn't accelerating quite as fast because you haven't got your underfloor setup absolutely right. A more stable track helps. Bumps don't help with porpoising, which is why you saw more of it in Bahrain than you did in Saudi. But what basically happens, like air goes through a motorway, and then the motorway turns into a cul-de-sac, and that pushes the car up. And then when the car moves up, the air starts going through the motorway again, and the car squats and sucks down. And then it turns into a cul-de-sac again, and it gets repeated over and over again. And it basically looks like your Formula One driver has got Cowboys from Hell by Pantera on, rather than a nice bit of Midnight Oil or Bon Jovi. Yeah?
Yeah, that was a nice image, nice metaphor. David, Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, he comes here with 0 points and all the issues with McLaren. Gerard and I had Luke Smith on last week, and it just so happened that we decided to compare his career to Mark Webber's, and they're both in really similar points. Or sorry, Dan's career is at a similar point to where Mark ended. They've got really similar race stats to how many races they started in and how many podiums and how many wins. Where is Daniel's career at right now? And I guess if we'd asked you that question 5 years ago, prior to him going to Renault, where did you think it was going?
I thought he was going to stay at Red Bull. And I said this the other day, I'm still not totally sure why Daniel left Red Bull. And I know Red Bull weren't necessarily the competitive car then that they are now. And I know that there was this guy called Max Verstappen that was there. And he was quite good, gone on to become a world champion. And Helmut Marko, really likes him. And Daniel felt that the team liked him more than Daniel. But I still wouldn't have left Red Bull. I certainly wouldn't have gone to Renault, who, yes, I know they're a works team, but they haven't got the budget that Red Bull have got. And they certainly haven't had the success. And with all due respect to Renault, they probably haven't got the people there either that were going to turn their project into a championship-winning outfit. Daniel's always talked about winning championships, not just winning races. So I wasn't quite sure why he wanted to go to Renault, especially when he had the chance to go to McLaren at the same time. And I thought McLaren actually would have been a better fit for him. Now, of course, he's gone to McLaren. I still think it's a decent fit, but he's just turned up. He's turned up at a team that isn't there to win races on a regular basis yet. Look, he showed last year only 12 races ago now, that he's still a man that can win Formula One Grand Prix. And he won that on merit in Monza. There was no gifting, there was no lucking into it. He got past Max Verstappen at the off, and he controlled that race, and it was brilliant to see. But he's not going to do that all the time because the McLaren's not quite there. And it's certainly not there in this season because they've got issues that need fixing on the chassis. So it kind of all stems back to why did he leave Red Bull in the first place? And maybe one day Daniel will look back and say, no, I shouldn't have done that. Mark Webber didn't always beat Sebastian Vettel, but no one really criticised him for that. No one actually felt Mark was a worse driver as a result of it. His teammate was a 4-time world champion. Mark criticised a lot of what went on at Red Bull, but I don't think the fans did. I think Daniel should have stayed. Certainly Dietrich Mateschitz wanted him to stay. Certainly Christian Horner wanted him to stay. And I think Red Bull would have been a better team had he stayed. So, I know we're talking with hindsight here, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. But when the news came through that summer that he decided not to sign a new contract and he was with Red Bull, he was going to Renault, I do remember thinking, what? At the time. And I'm still thinking, really? Even now?
Yeah, and I think everyone's starting to work out where Ricciardo's career is heading, and we look forward to somebody sometime coming to Australia, an Australian, and actually winning. Can I ask you the future?
You've got Oscar Piastri. We've got
Oscar, and we got him on the show in a couple of days.
He's
and he may well be
his 21st birthday.
He may well be our first world champion. Who knows? But yeah, we're looking forward to young Oscar doing great things. Will Oscar be still driving a car with the same fuel systems that we've got now, or do you think Oscar throughout his career will have an ammonia, a hydrogen, or some other form of green power powering his car?
Oh, there's a question. If he gets his seat in Formula One, which he richly deserves, and happy 21st next Wednesday, isn't it? Oscar's 21st. If he stays in Formula One, he will be driving E10 fuel, 10% ethanol fuel for the time being. And then he will be driving a sustainable fuel, as far as I can read the runes, from 2026 onwards. Now, what that is, I don't know. Because I'm not sure that ethanol, and I'm no massive expert on this, but I've done a bit of chatting, I'm not sure ethanol is necessarily the fuel of the future when it comes to what can and can't be produced sustainably and in a green way and be biofuels. There are lots of people doing a lot of research into what that fuel should be, and I don't think it should be. There's an idea that we get a single fuel supplier as well. I would disagree with that, because I think actually the platform of competition allows for faster and speedier development, which can only help the planet in the future on that one. So I would have as many fuel and oil companies working on this as we possibly can. I mean, I was told there's some research into algae as a fuel. You know, that the green stuff that clogs up your ponds when it hasn't rained for a while. Wouldn't that be great? Turn algae into fuel, then you're really making quite an impact. Albeit you'd have to have quite a big pond to get enough algae out of it. But that could be done. But hydrogen, I don't see, because you can't at the moment produce enough of it to satisfy worldwide demand if it became the fuel for our road cars. But there are certainly biofuels out there that are being researched on that Formula One will take on board and should take on board, because we are at the pinnacle of engineering as well as the pinnacle of racing, and it's only right we innovate for the future of the planet.
My gut feeling is it'll be ammonia based. And my wallet will hope that's the case, because
I was about to say there'd be some stocks that you are hoping go one way.
Exactly.
Have you invested in this? Have you got a keen interest, sir?
I've got a keen interest.
David, he's got a keen interest in a fair bit when it comes to the stock.
We've already had Jet Airlines use ammonia, so I suspect we're going to be able to have Formula Ones.
David Croft is the voice of Formula One, joining us for the first time on Sportsday. It's very exciting. David, I've got to ask you, you're talking to one guy in Gerard that played at the highest level for a long time and then now commentates, and you're talking to another guy that just does radio and didn't get into commentary because it'd be too hard. Now, Gerard, David is commentating a sport where he's basically having to look at 20 drivers at the same time. it would be like calling a horse race and worrying about every single horse. Whereas a horse caller like Matty Hill, who's unbelievable, just really has to worry about the last 200 metres and who's going to come first, second, and third. So, David, can you just give us some insight? How many screens do you have when you're watching? How much are you talking to producers saying, I need that replay of corner 3 or 4? And how do you actually do it? I'm just gobsmacked watching and listening to know how you could try to tell 20 storylines at once.
Right. Well, if you come along to plenary next Tuesday night, you can get more of an insight into this, because Martin Brundle and I are going to be on stage, and we might just talk about our commentary box a little bit and show you some photos of it. It's the Ask Crofty Live with me and Martin, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But what we have is a setup where we have a big TV screen in front of us, and by the way, we're back in the commentary boxes full time this year, which is magnificent. For the last 2 years, because of COVID, we've been in a shed, basically in a TV compound. But now we can mingle with everyone again, and we can go to the back of grandstand, so we can actually see. We have an amazing view at some tracks, albeit Albert Park isn't one of them, because we're down ground level at turn 1. So we'll see everything whizzing past, but we won't see really much else. Either way, big TV with the world feed on that we commentate off. And then there's a couple of timing screens underneath that. And then there's 3 monitors to the side with a GPS on it of all the cars going around the track, a timing screen, another different timing screen above that, and another timing screen underneath it. And then on the other side, on my right-hand side, I've got a TX monitor, which is our output from Sky, not the world feed. And sometimes it's different. Another driver tracker, and the final timing screen. And I've got the app open, the F1 TV app, because it gives us all the tyre information that we can't get elsewhere. And that's it. That's what we're commentating off. Now, you say, what do I tell our director and producer we need replays? No, because it's a world feed we commentate off. We have no control really over the pictures, unless we go to our own cameras, when Martin or Jensen are out trackside in the practice sessions, for instance. So what comes up on the screen is as new to me as it is to you most of the time. There are occasions I get a bit of pre-warning, but very rarely. So I have to go on. I have to, so you have to react and keep on your toes, and you use the timing screens to help you reference who we're riding on board with, where they are in the race, who the car is up ahead, because sometimes you actually can't see the car up ahead on the actual TV screen itself. But it's we use the timing screens to look at where the stories are that we should be talking about, and who's closing up on who's pulling away, who's might have made a mistake because their time has just gone rapidly downhill. But I can't explain it much more than that, because it's kind of instinctive as to what we do.
Yeah. Yep.
You spoke about Martin Brundle, and I'd like to know a little bit more, if you like, about your meetings together. But I'm wondering, were you there when Martin Brundle did what he did in Melbourne's Grand Prix, which was one of the most spectacular exits of a car I've ever seen?
Was I there? No, I was watching back home. I wasn't actually working in Formula One at that stage, but I do remember thinking, blimey, that was a big one. I mean, 1996, I just started. Actually, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I just started in BBC local radio. That's how long ago that was. But I remember thinking, that's a biggie. And then he was on the Chris Evans TFI Friday show the week after. I'm thinking, blimey, I want to be sitting down, not partying with the stars on that one. But that's Martin. You can't keep a good man down, quite frankly. And he's been dining out on the tail that Chris Evans wanted him in the studio ever since. He's had quite a few biggies in his career, Martin. I swear that the man feels no pain. I know he has emotions, but he feels no pain. And the fact that he had that biggie, jogged back to the pit lane to restart. They couldn't do that these days.
Now, it's a lot of positivity, wasn't it? The fact that he thought he was going to restart. It was a good jog.
David, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I hope we can keep in touch with you over the next couple of weeks. And
love to.
Gerard does have his finger in a few different pies when it comes to the restaurant scene here in Melbourne. So if after the race you needed to find the best place to go and celebrate, you just have to ask.
Where would you suggest, Gerard? Because from my experience, Melbourne on a Sunday night, by the time we finish work, most things are all shut up. I mean, does everyone go to bed at 9:30 in Melbourne on a Sunday night?
I reckon we could keep
We used to.
Donovan's on the beach down at St Kilda open.
Donovan's is the place to go.
I think we
Donovan's.
could probably find you a spot there at some stage. Great to have you on board, David, and we look forward to maybe helping you have a dinner at some stage after the Sunday night fiesta, which I'll replay that after the Sunday night extravaganza down at Albert Park. But great to have you on board.
Thanks,
And good luck.
Thank you very much. Great to be coming back. Anytime you want me, I'm more than happy to come on, guys. But don't forget, Tuesday, April the 5th, the best way to kickstart Formula One Grand Prix week in Albert Park at the plenary. Martin Brundle and myself live on stage. You can get your tickets via Ticketek right now. We're live on stage. The title of the tour is Please Come Along, We Don't Want to Be Lonely, which I know sounds like I'm begging for everyone to buy tickets, but I am. We don't want to be lonely. We're fed up talking to each other. We'd quite like to talk to everyone else.
We'd love to talk to you about it and give it another push just prior to. All the best, David. And
Anytime, guys.
It's tickets available at Ticketek. It's on at the plenary, and it's going to be a great way to start the Grand Prix celebrations.
Take care, guys. Have a brilliant weekend.